Hello, and welcome to Sharp Psych. Today, we're going to talk about the nature versus nurture debate. Make sure you watch this video until the end, as we will explore the difference between nature and nurture, along with examples and an explanation of why the outdated views of nativism and empiricism do not align with contemporary perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos about psychology, and be sure to check out the links in the description. The statement of nature versus nurture is a long-standing argument that tries to determine the extent to which genetics, nature, and environmental factors, nurture, determine a person's characteristics. The term was first coined by Francis Galton. He was the half-cousin of Charles Darwin, and as you may know, Darwin was a British naturalist who explored how genetic traits of species may change over time in nature. In psychology, nativism, which is an extreme hereditary position, proposes that the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills and internal characteristics are determined solely by genetics. In contrast, empiricism, the extreme hereditary position, declare that the mind is a clean slate at childbirth and that external factors such as culture and training shape a person's characteristics in an adult life and their way of thinking. So let's look at the nature perspective. Supporters of the nature perspective argue that our behaviors, abilities, and characteristics are primarily determined by our genetic makeup or our biology. Nature indicate the genetics and hereditary aspects that are left from parents to their children. Our genes and genetic factors influence many aspects of a person's physical appearance. Our inherited genetic traits play a significant role in shaping who we are and how we behave. This perspective is also known as the biological perspective, or genetic determinism. For example, specific individuals may be predisposed to certain mental disorders such as schizophrenia, depression, or anxiety disorder due to genetic predispositions. Studies suggest that approximately 50% of an individual's personality and temperament are genetically determined, but the influence of genetic environmental interactions is complex, and the heritability of personality is not always 50%. The extent to which genetics influence human characteristics and traits is referred to as heritability and is measured from 0 to 1, with strongly inheritable characteristics such as eye color being ranked as 1.0, and traits with no connection to genetics, for example, speaking with an accent, ranked as 0. Most of these human attributions are between 0.30 and 0.60, which imitate a combination of both genetics and environmental factors. Plato, who was an ancient Greek philosopher, thought that innate knowledge was current in our minds at birth, and each child is born with inborn characteristics. However, environmental components can alter an individual's dominant personal characteristic, and personality is not set in stone. A 2014 systematic review of environmental and genetic impact on personality development found that individuals change as they age, with personality traits being relatively stable during each childhood, but often changing dramatically during adolescence and young adulthood. It's not possible to determine the exact extent to which nature changes personality as people age, but a study in 2019 discovered that people's Big Five personality characteristics are both solid and adjustable. Now that we've discussed the nature perspective, let's talk about what is the nurture perspective. Supporters of the nurture perspective argue that our behaviors, abilities, and characteristics are primarily determined by our environment and our experiences. Nurture perspective indicates to all environmental factors and external cause that influence human development, such as upbringing of a child, experiences in early childhood, daily routine, social rank, and education. This perspective is also known as the environmental perspective, or nurture determinism. Environmental aspects that impact a person's physical or psychological health throughout their life, and even in adulthood. Choosing healthy lifestyle alternatives can balance certain genetic tendencies. For instance, a study from May 2022 found that individuals with a high genetic possibility of developing Alzheimer's disease could decrease their likeliness of having dementia by adopting 7 healthy practices in middle age. You can learn more about these 7 healthy habits in the video that's linked in the description below. There are 2 additional philosophical theories known as nativism and empiricism, which represent the extreme positions of the nature versus nurture debate. Allow me to explain. Nativism in its extreme form, suggests that all our characteristics, both physical and mental traits, are inherited and set at birth. Nature. This led to the racially biased heredity movement, which meant that a judgment had been made by solely on a person's race. This took place in the early 20th century, but thankfully, the idea of selective breeding decreased in the time of World War II, when the Nazis' ethnic cleansing cruelty were uncovered. Sensationalism, also known as empiricist philosophy, on the other hand, is directly opposed to the suggestion that individuals are born together with natural knowledge, and instead proposes that the mind is a clean slate and that external factors shape a person's characteristics. Nurture. Contemporary views on nature versus nurture acknowledge that both genetics and environment play a role in shaping a person's characteristics, and that the interplay between nature and nurture is complex and not easily quantifiable. The interactionist perspective has emerged in the nature versus nurture debate, which suggests that genetics and the environment play a role in shaping human behavior and development. This perspective argues that nature and nurture interact and influence each other, and that neither can fully account for behavior and development on their own. The interactionist perspective suggests that inherited genetic traits and environmental factors both contribute to the development of an individual. For example, a person may have a genetic predisposition to a certain mental disorder, but whether or not the disorder develops may depend on environmental factors such as stress or childhood trauma. Similarly, an individual's environment may provide opportunities or challenges that are influenced by genetic factors. Advocates of the interactionalist perspective point to research in fields such as epigenetics, which has shown that environmental factors can affect the expression of genes, and that genetic factors can influence the way an individual responds to their environment. They also point to studies that have shown that the effects of genes and environments are often complex and difficult to disentangle. The interactionalist perspective highlights the importance of considering the interplay between nature and nurture when studying behavior and development. It suggests that a holistic approach, which takes into account both genetics and environmental factors, is necessary to fully understand the underlying causes of behavior and development. In conclusion, the interactionalist perspective represents a more recent and nuanced approach to the nature versus nurture debate. It argues that both genetics and the environment play a role in shaping human behavior and development, and that the interplay between the two is complex and multifaceted. This perspective highlights the importance of taking a holistic approach when studying behavior and development, and the need to consider both genetic and environmental factors. The debate between nature and nurture has been ongoing for centuries. However, recent developments in genetics research has provided a more nuanced understanding of the role that genetics plays in human behavior and development. In recent years, genetics research had made significant advancements. According to the findings of various studies, particular genetic variations have been found to be associated with specific behavioral and mental disorders, like schizophrenia and depression. In addition, studies have shown that environmental and genetic factors frequently interact in complicated ways to have an effect on an individual's behavior and development. For instance, a genetic predisposition to a particular disorder might not become apparent until the individual is subjected to a specific set of environmental stressors. When investigating the factors that led to behavioral and mental disorders, it is crucial to consider both natural and environmental influences. It's also essential to keep in mind that genetics is not deterministic. This means that just because a person possesses a particular genetic variation does not necessarily mean that they will be predisposed to developing a particular disorder. A wide variety of factors, including environmental factors, have the potential to have an effect on the expression of genes. When it comes to determining human behavior and development, both nature and nurture play an important role, and the interaction between the two is a complicated and multifaceted process. When researching behavior and development, it's imperative that we take into account both genetic and environmental factors, and that we adopt a holistic perspective when examining the factors that underlie behavior and development. I hope this video has provided you with valuable information to better understand the nature versus nurture debate. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.